Mr. Speaker, imagine, if you will, with me a moment in time where my friend Bob is sitting across the desk from his doctor. And his doctor delivered the devastating news that he had cancer. And not just any cancer, but a super aggressive form that had little forms of treatment and no help of a cure. He's told he has a year to live. Now fast forward with me to today, Mr. Speaker, where Bob still lives with his wife in Georgia over 14 years later. 14 years he was able to spend with his kids and grandkids. 14 years of sunrises and sunsets. But had he listened to his doctors and lost hope because of that, he may not be with us here today. You see, Mr. Speakers, doctors do not write our story. God does. There are continual medical advancements that improve treatments for diseases that today we deem incurable. But there's a bigger problem with this legislation beyond what medicine may or may not be able to help. It, like all early ending of life, is a permanent solution for what may be a temporary problem. Sadly, people do it every day. Earlier in this session, I joined a bipartisan majority of this body to ensure that someone was not charged with a crime if they attempted suicide in the middle of a mental health crisis and they survive. But this bill takes a large step forward from that and asks not only is it not a crime, but that the state sanction it and ask a physician to help in that process. So many times when a loved one ends their life early, we ask ourselves if we could have done something to stop it. And now there's a move to sanction it and to say it's okay. And where does all this come from? I believe that this end starts at the beginning. There's been a concerted movement by some across the political spectrum to devalue life. When we determine that life at its inception is inconvenient and that there's a choice to be made whether to protect it or not, when we arrive at its end, we may also find that it is inconvenient or a choice to be made. Mr. Speaker, prior to my arrival in this chamber, the death penalty was removed from the Virginia Code. One of the arguments made was that, what if we get it wrong? What if, even though convicted beyond a reasonable doubt, we get it wrong and murder an innocent man? That one instance of getting it wrong is not worth the risk. And this isn't even a hypothetical argument. We have people sitting in jails for years that we then find out we got it wrong. And then we have to pay them for what we did to them. Well, Mr. Speaker, today I make that same argument. What if the doctors get it wrong? What if the medical diagnosis is wrong and we allow a doctor to end someone's life that wasn't really going to die in 6 months? Are we really going to allow that? Are we going to be complicit in that choice, in that decision? Mr. Speaker, I, for one, will not be complicit. Just as I would have voted to end the death penalty here in Virginia had I been in this chamber, on the premise that what if the jury got it wrong? I encourage my colleagues that the risks are too great with this bill, that a doctor doesn't write our story. I encourage you to reject this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.